I don't think Mangione's any kind of hero whatsoever. I think he's a coward. Anybody that walks up behind somebody and executes them is a fucking coward, period. So he's no hero, but I understand his frustration. The healthcare industry, listen, I had cancer, and the healthcare industry saved my life.
Luigi Mangione. This is a kind of a controversial topic. Any thoughts on the CEO killer, Luigi Mangione?
Yeah, I think that he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life, as he should.
He has a lot of support from the public. Any thoughts about that? This is well, I never seen something like this as far as amount of cameras that there are in this city, and the amount of manpower to go into one in the middle, like in this city, New York, where I wouldn't say this area or that area has too many shootings like that, but there are shootings all over New York, and to have all this manpower for one CEO, but just, this rich man to, have all this, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm trying to get at? And then it's like...
Are you suggesting that they treated this...
yeah.
Well, yeah, listen, when high-profile people get killed, then more resources are poured into it. I mean, more resources went into Biggie's murder than any gang murder in Los Angeles. So yeah, the more high-profile you are, the more attention it gets, and the more attention it gets, the more public pressure there is. The more public pressure it is, the more the police department are going to pour resources into it. So it's not like this nefarious thing, like, oh my God, they're just... It's just the way it is. If there's nothing went viral right away, it became an international story, and you've got this CEO for a major healthcare organization. The big news brings big pressure to solve it, so you dump resources into it. And,
right.
Some nobody, and I don't mean a nobody meaning nobody, I mean just somebody nobody's ever heard of, from the streets gets killed over a drug deal or over a girlfriend. Doesn't get any news, doesn't get any,
right.
no pressure. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, it's just the way it is.
Well, some people may feel like that. Well, somebody could get shot outside in Times Square just for maybe just in the crossfire, or just innocently because the guy was crazy, but may have not gotten the same manpower,
Yeah, if it had been just some random tourist getting shot,
right?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't going to be as high profile. But what made this high profile is because somebody was trying to make a political statement. They're using the murder to try to with a broader agenda.
Right.
It wasn't just some random shooting. It was a directed shooting in order to send a message. So that little nuance is sometimes all the difference that it takes.
What are your thoughts of people calling him a hero?
Listen, I get the idea that the healthcare system, has a lot to be desired, and that there's a lot of problems with big pharma and a lot of problems with, my wife works in the healthcare industry. And so I get the frustration of people that don't think they're getting the benefits that they deserve. But I also see the abuse of the system by the recipients of the system, like in the, workers' comp area, like the abuse of people that are taking advantage of workers' comp just because they can. But then there's people with legitimate claims that aren't getting the care that they need. So it's a very double-edged sword. And you can look at it from either direction, or you can look at it from both directions and say, yeah, they're failing and they're failing. So I don't think Mangione's any kind of hero whatsoever. I think he's a coward. Anybody that walks up behind somebody and executes them is a fucking coward, period. So he's no hero, but I understand his frustration and I understand where he's coming from. And he wanted to be a martyr. You know, that was his whole intention. He wanted to be a martyr for this cause. But guess what? It's a failed martyrdom because nobody's, you know, you're not going to make that big of a difference.
There's no change, basically.
There's no change. And all you've done is sacrificed your life and taken the life of an innocent man. And even though people could look at that and go, well, he's the, you know, the epitome of all that's wrong in the healthcare agency. And you don't have the right to take the man's life. You don't have the right to deprive his wife of a husband and his children of a father. You know, you just don't, you know, that's just cowardice.
Well, what do you think people say? Some people, the way they put it was healthcare and the CEO guys, people like these, like the CEO that was killed, they do it the same thing but different way. They did it with a pen.
All right, well, do it with a pen. Do it legally. Do it, you know, if
Well, sick people that were denied help, basically.
like I said, it's much more complex than that. It's a very nuanced thing. You have to really get into the weeds with it. You know, because again, there's so much abuse of the system by the recipients. You know, it's not just everybody's getting denied. Like I said, my wife works in this industry, and you see people constantly putting in for claims of these really over-exaggerated injuries at work. You know, they want to go, like, it is incredible how abusive people can be towards the system itself by trying to get workers' comp insurance. You know, for some injury, they went skiing and they hurt themselves. Well, they're going to work through that injury until they get back to work and then blame the injury on something that happened at work. Shit happens all the time. We saw this all the time in law enforcement. Guys are getting ready to retire. All of a sudden, man, oh man, I've got this injury because now I want a medical retirement. Right? Well, they hurt themselves for years of being involved in athletics or, you know, off-road motorsports, whatever. But they're going to use their injuries in order to try to get benefits that they really don't deserve. This happens all the time.
Right.
So the healthcare industry has to be looked at from both directions. The healthcare industry is trying to protect itself from all of those, you know, exaggerated or bogus claims. But at the same time, there's a lot of legitimate claims where the people aren't getting the care that they need. And it's hard to sometimes decipher, you know, who deserves it and who doesn't.
Right. Well, there it is. I don't mean to rile you up.
No.
He's about to throw that coffee at me.
Yeah. No, you're not riling me up at all. It's just, I think people they'll look at it from one side or the other.
Right.
Instead of looking at it from both sides,
Yeah.
you know. You know, so I'm very thankful for what they can do for somebody, right? But at the same time, I also am empathetic towards those people that aren't getting the care that they rightly deserve, you know, or they can't afford, and then they're, you know, unfortunately, yeah, it's a complicated mess.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it. It's a complicated mess.